Hey friends, I am so excited to be on here today. Okay, so look, it's another Fight Back Friday that got away from me yesterday. But I'm here now. I had a little animal incident yesterday evening when I was going to go live and had to pivot. So I'm coming at you today. I'm actually with a few entrepreneur mama friends this weekend, getting away, getting some work done, and getting time to quietly sit and do this live video on a topic that I'm really excited to talk about with you, but it's really hard to talk about too. And I'm sure you saw in the title, but let's talk about trauma as it relates to healing. So hello, good to see you all on here. I hope you're doing well. I want to keep this brief, but I want to be sensitive to this topic today. Emotional trauma and trauma in general in the healing process is a very personal topic for everybody. Some people may not feel like they are traumatized or experiencing trauma in their healing journey, and that's great. That's cool. Some of you may not be aware that that is what is holding you back or holding you up in some of your healing. And some of you may be fully aware and working on it or not sure where to go with it and the healing process. And I'm not sure I'm going to offer solutions that are outside, like obvious ones, but I want to encourage you in your journey too along the way. And I want to bring this topic to light because it is important that we are aware of trauma in our own world if we want to heal. And if you're here, I think it's because you want to heal and you believe it can happen for you. So we all have trauma, okay? Trauma is what we make it or what it is to us. Like, I can't tell you, oh, that was trauma for you, and you can't tell me what was trauma for me, but we have to be able to self-evaluate and acknowledge what might be arising in our lives. So even if we don't acknowledge it for what it is, it may still be there, and it definitely, if it's there, is impacting us in our journey. So be open-minded to what work you or anyone around you may or may not need to do to work through this, but it can be done. There is hope. Okay. Here's some like brief description of trauma, what I'm talking about when I say trauma or emotional trauma, specifically that can continue to rear its ugly head over time. And that's one of the key components of it. So it's a response, usually emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. It's a response your body and self makes to an event in your life or series of events. Often we think of them as being like huge events in the sense of like big major accidents or like huge assaults or natural disasters even, or huge like mass casualties or horrible like traumatic things like that. That's what we've been taught is trauma. However, years of illness can be traumatic. Years of being gaslit or emotionally abused in your illness by doctors or friends or family can be trauma, especially over time. It can accumulate into traumatic responses from your body. So listen to your body and see what it's telling you about the trauma you may or may not have gone through. So often with traumas, immediately after the event is like some kind of a shock or denial phase or, feeling. Not always, but a lot of times. But long-term reactions to trauma can be kind of unpredictable and can be varied for everybody. It can include stuff like flashbacks, emotional swings, like even unpredictable or unexplainable emotional swings. Strained relationships are very common after traumas, and even like physical symptoms like what you may be experiencing. Ongoing aches and pains, headaches, nausea, belly upset, poor sleep, nightmares, night terrors, stress responses that are out of whack, off, whatever, adrenal fatigue type symptoms or adrenal fatigue itself. So be aware if you're looking within to assess for signs of trauma. Maybe kind of knowing what to look for can help. It can also be more subtle signs and symptoms than that even too though. So Be open to that. Do some of your own research, look into different signs and symptoms. And I can't emphasize this enough. I am not here as a medical professional on the topic. I'm here to educate you friend to friend and coach to coach and coach to healer and healer to healer. So never hesitate to seek the professional help of a medical professional or a mental health professional. I'm going to say it again at the end. I can't say it enough, so I'm going to say it a couple times here. Okay. What trauma can do, and emotional trauma included in that, or physical trauma to your body, even medical procedures and things like that can create these kind of traumatic events, which a lot of us have gone through stuff that may or may not have gone according to plan, may or may not have turned out in our favor, may or may not have been on our terms. And that can be traumatic for sure. So what that does is it adds kind of insult to injury, more or less. If you're stalled out in your healing journey, or you're looking for the next level of what to do next, what to heal next, where to go next, consider addressing any emotional trauma or other traumas you've experienced from your past and looking for effective ways to address the triggers and direct that trauma elsewhere and heal it going forward. Okay? Because what traumas can do is cause illness. They alter our frequency, they alter our thought patterns, they alter our physical well-being. There is even some evidence out there to suggest that trauma, even generational trauma from previous generations, can impact your DNA to the very day you're living now. They don't fully understand how this is possible, but scientists are starting to see that it looks like it is possible. Fascinating, but it goes to show that we are an accumulation of our mental status and our emotional well-being. We are not just physical beings. So our physical wellness is not the only component to healing by a long shot. And with mental, emotional, spiritual, DNA cellular level healing comes your physical healing a lot of times too, at least to a large degree. So remember that these traumas can manifest physically, and that is not abnormal, and they can be carried generationally, and that is not something any of us wants. So if you have not looked into this aspect of healing, then I would say, in all love and honesty and all care and concern for you, that you have not looked at all sides of a healing journey. And that's cool. Now you know, and now we can start doing that. Trauma also lowers our healing abilities, like I alluded to a second ago, in the frequency of our cellular activity and the atomic atom electron activity in our bodies. It lowers that frequency outside of a range of a healing frequency. And yes, there are frequencies in nature and the vibrations of the electrons of atoms in nature that are more healing to the body than other frequencies. And the lower the frequency goes, the more illness and injury can actually creep in. And that is a very fascinating topic. That is not the thrust of this whole video. So if you're really curious about that, just Google healing frequencies and kind of see like where illness kind of starts to set in if we do not work to raise our vibrations. I know that's become a catchphrase, but I mean, it kind of is healing truth as well. So to raise your vibrational frequencies, heal your DNA processes and DNA pathways, and impact generations, seek professional help, get help with your emotional healing as a priority. I also want to throw out the second part to emotional trauma, where some manifestations of emotional trauma can look like how you behave. People pleasers, doubting yourself constantly, unexplained aches and pains, and continued health problems that just pop up without good explanation, or even with explanation, honestly. Trouble sleeping, trouble relaxing, highly triggered and sensitive behaviors that, especially if that's not like you normally or not like who you had been. Frequent stomach aches or headaches or any aches, really, again, unexplained often or just random, seemingly random. Mood alterations and mood swings, substance abuse issues of any kind, drugs and alcohol being one source, but there are lots of different substances or things in life that can be abused or overused for soothing purposes. and avoidance behaviors, and even more than that, it's a short list really, can be signs of trauma. So it's not just about always the big obvious things. And I know that with a lot of that comes shame, and creates a vicious cycle, because when you feel shamed, you can feel incapable of healing or fixing or addressing the issues at hand, and then that makes you sicker, and then you continue in that cycle of shame and sickness. I don't want that for any of you. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for my children or their kids or their kids, on and on. And my biggest advice and encouragement to you is to seek professional help sooner rather than later for that. Some things that you can look into are obviously licensed therapist counseling, just speaking to your Lyme literate provider or your PCP about where you're at and what you think might be going on, or if you're not sure, that's fine too. That something's wrong is important enough, or something's off that you would like investigated further is enough of a reason to seek an evaluation, so you don't have to know all the answers. Also, consider some alternative therapies, like perhaps for you it might be neurofeedback or EMDR. There are different kinds of therapies within the world of mental health therapy, counseling, and psychological assistance and recovery, mental health recovery, that there are many different therapies and modalities that can help specifically through trauma. One that I am actually looking to start here very soon, I have to make the phone call and set it up, is EMDR therapy. Let me get I always forget the exact definition. I actually have my computer with my notes right here. So let's look into it real quick so you can know exactly. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I always forget desensitization. EMDR. I've heard it talked about all the time. I'm very excited to try it for myself. It's supposed to be particularly good with certain types of grief and trauma recovery. So that is some of what I've dealt with in my personal life, but also in my career. And yeah, your career can impact hugely a lot of what goes on with you too. I'm a nurse, so I've seen a lot, dealt with a lot, and I'm going to be open and honest about that. So I am going to be looking for a therapist that specializes and is trained in EMDR, and I'm going to collaborate with them and ask them if this is a therapy modality, not just talk therapy, but using EMDR therapy would be helpful in my next level of treatment. Especially if you're dealing with neuro-Lyme and neurocognitive issues related to Lyme, co-infections, autoimmune, chronic illness, any of those things, EMDR can be really effective and helpful. So can neurofeedback therapy. I will look that up for you too. So I have some friends that have done neurofeedback, or neurobiofeedback is another name you may have heard. So it is biofeedback. I'm going to read the definition off of Wikipedia for you real quick. It uses real-time displays of your brain activity. So it like looks at your brain waves, usually using EEG monitoring, which is like little monitors on your scalp, to teach self-regulation of brain function. And this, let's see, there's evidence supporting neurotherapy for generalized treatment of mental disorders, but it's been practiced for over 40 years. So it's pretty non-invasive. It's administered by a professional trained in it, and it can give you insight into how the brain waves are functioning or dysfunctioning, and give you suggestions on how to correct or moderate any of that for your healing journey. So those are some quick areas that might be worth looking into if this is an area that, along with talk therapy or counseling therapy as well by a trained and licensed professional, of course. But those are areas you can look into relatively easy, relatively right away. There's a lot available online right now with COVID and everything. It's opened the door to online therapy availabilities, and that's a great asset too for some of us that need that option. What else though can you do or have you done to heal trauma, to break the cycle of shame and illness and shame and sickness cycle and move forward in your trauma recovery? I'd love for you to share. I know it's a sensitive topic. Don't feel obligated, but if you feel so inclined to share what you have done that's worked for you or what you've heard to be really great suggestions, let's brainstorm together and fight back for our healing's sake. Okay, guys? Because you're worth it. Your healing is worth it. And your journey matters. I'm here for you. And have a great rest of your weekend.